Welcome back, this is part 3 of What Happened to the Thing series. Well, it took 30 years, but now we finally have the 2011 The Thing prequel, and right off the bat, there's a problem. It's a prequel. The movie is set in the Norwegian camp from the first movie, and the inherent problem with making the movie a prequel is that it ruins a lot of the mystery from the Carpenter film. A lot of the terror from the 1982 movie came from the fact that it quite deliberately left a lot of questions unanswered, and yet here we have a movie that's going out and answering those questions. No longer do I look at the Norwegian camp and wonder, oh my god, what the hell happened here? Because now I know what happened, and unfortunately, it wasn't really that interesting. And while this film is supposed to be a prequel to the 1982 John Carpenter movie, you could have easily fooled me into thinking it was a remake, because the movie hits all the same beats as the 1982 movie. You've got a similar setting, the characters are copies of the ones from the first film, even the title is exactly the same as the Carpenter movie. The only real thing it does different is that it sometimes substitutes slightly different ideas for ones that were done better by Carpenter. I'm telling you, I'll take the blood test over the fillings test any day of the week. And it's hard for me to accept the film as being a prequel, because it manages to contradict the original time and time again. I could mention the smaller continuity issues I have with the film, like the fact that the Norwegians never use any kerosene to burn the things, even though it's clearly evident that they did in the last movie, but it's just easier for me to mention the huge plot hole where in the first film the Norwegians used thermite charges to uncover the alien ship from the ice, but here that never happens. And this isn't just some minor nitpick, that's a major plot point from the first film. How could they fuck this up? And the connections it does have to the 82 movie feel tacked on at best, almost as if they were added in as an afterthought. For example, we know that John Carpenter's movie starts with two Norwegians in a helicopter who don't speak any English, chasing after a sled dog that has been taken over by the Thing. However, in this movie, all the Norwegians speak English, they don't have a helicopter, and they don't have a dog team. So, how is this supposed to connect to the original? Well, it turns out that there just happens to be one guy in the entire base who doesn't speak any English, and he has a pet dog on base with him. And he and the dog only have blink and you'll miss it roles. They're barely in the movie. And as for the helicopter, it just flies in out of nowhere right at the end of the movie. I can almost imagine the writers 5 minutes before their deadline going, oh shit, we forgot to put in the helicopter. Quick, put in something at the end. And that's what all the references to the original in this movie are like. It feels like the script started off as a remake, but then they just shoehorned in these connections at the last minute. I do appreciate the fact that they cast actual Norwegian actors in the roles of the Norwegian characters, but the thing is that for a movie that's supposed to be about what happened to these Norwegians, they've only got a background role in the film. Most of them are just there to act as red shirts to get killed by the monsters. Instead, the lead roles go to a bunch of Americans who were never mentioned in the first film. This is just typical of Hollywood, isn't it? It's like how when Mad Max was first released in the US, they actually dubbed over the Australian accents with American accents. Or like how the Dragon Ball, The Last Airbender, and the upcoming Akira movie have gone about replacing any Asian characters with white people. I can't believe that Hollywood is still operating under this same mindset they've had since the 50s, where if you're not male, white, or American, they refuse to make a movie about you. There's no subtlety in this movie, and that's really saying something considering that it's not like the 82 movie was very subtle itself. While the Carpenter movie tried to keep you guessing who was one of the things and who wasn't, this movie just telegraphs who's been infected from a mile away. Never was I left wondering who was infected and who wasn't. In the Carpenter movie, the terror came from the fact that the creature hid itself amongst the crew. But here, the creature doesn't bother to hide. Instead, It attacks without ever being provoked, transforming right in front of people and then just basically bum rushing them, chasing them through the hallways, knocking things over, and basically just making as much noise and drawing as much attention to itself as possible. Yeah, great survival instincts. And while the first two films relied on suspense and paranoia in order to build feelings of tension and dread, this film just has a heap of those cheap jump scares, those scenes where things just suddenly leap out and go boo. In fact, there's a scene in this movie where somebody actually does sneak up behind someone and go boo. Boo! Jesus. And sadly, that's probably the scariest scene in this movie. You see, this is another bad trend I've been seeing in movies over the last few years. Long gone are the days where movies would actually have a slow build up to develop the story and characters, to set the atmosphere and tone, and to build the suspense and drama. Nowadays, Hollywood seems to think that audiences will get bored if their movies don't have any tits, explosions, or jump scares every 2 minutes. It's like they have no respect for our attention spans. The music is generic and forgettable, and again, it lacks subtlety. You can almost feel the composer standing over your shoulder and screaming into your ear, "Hey, do you hear that scary music? That means you're supposed to be scared now. Hey, you scared yet? Hey buddy, hey mate, you scared or what?" What Ennio Morricone could do in just 2 notes, this guy couldn't do in his whole soundtrack. And of course, I have to get to the effects. During the production of the film, the filmmakers tried to assure the fans that, "Oh no, don't worry, we're gonna do the effects practically. It'll be like 90% practical and 10% CG. No, don't you see? We've even hired Amalgamated Dynamics to work on the film." Well, you know what? They fucking lied to us. Oh sure, Amalgamated Dynamics did work on the movie, and if you watch the behind the scenes videos, you'll see that they actually did make some pretty good practical animatronics for the movie. But guess what happened in the final cut? They painted over the animatronics with CGI. What the fuck? Why would you even do that? You had these perfectly good looking practical effects, and yet for some reason you've gone, "Oh no, we can't have that. We'd better digitally erase them and replace them with some PS3 graphics." And that's what the CG in the movie looks like. It looks like a video game. Rob Bottin's practical effects in the Carpenter movie had such a visceral reality to them. You could feel those transformations. They looked so violent and painful. But here, I just thought I was playing Dead Space again. And some of the monster designs are just no. What? No. And to me, it was so important that the effects in this movie be done practically, and not just because I think practical effects are better than CGI anyway. Even if they weren't, just because the Carpenter film was such a milestone in state-of-the-art animatronic effects, the effects should have just been practical to stay in style with and honour that film. If I were to make a sequel to a Ray Harryhausen movie, I'd want to use stop motion for the effects, even though I think CGI is better than stop motion. Or if I were to do a Tron movie, I'd want to use state-of-the-art CGI, because that's what Tron's about. Tron is supposed to be CGI, Harryhausen is stop motion, and The Thing is supposed to be practical. And here's something I really didn't get about the prequel. The filmmakers kept on trying to assure the fans that they were really trying to do the prequel right, and that they were trying to be as faithful to the Carpenter film as possible. But I have to ask, if they really wanted to be faithful to Carpenter's first movie, why didn't they bring back John Carpenter as director? Or Rob Bottin for the effects? Or Ennio Morricone for the score? Or Drew Struzan for the poster? Seriously. That was one goddamn amazing poster. Why didn't they bring Drew Struzan back? Well, The Thing prequel bombed at the box office, but unlike the last movie which only failed because it had too much competition with E.T., this movie bombed just because it sucked too much. It's clear that the people who made this movie misunderstood what made the originals such classics, and just like the creature it portrays, the film is nothing but a false imitation of another. You want my advice? Read the book, watch the first 2 movies, but avoid this imitation.